Pathfinder effects found in the Properties panel or the Pathfinder panel are another way to combine shapes in different ways. We'll select the Artboard 9, which is the door for the trailer. And with the selection tool, I'm going to select just the circle and the rectangle. And we'll use the Pathfinder this time to combine the shapes. So I'll select the circle and the rectangle. And then I'll go to Window and open up my Pathfinder panel. And I'll click the Unite button. It's the first one in the first row. Now what that did is it permanently changed the shape from the circle and the square into one object, which isn't quite what we want right now, because we want it to get to look like the object on the right. And we won't be able to do that now by using that command. So I'm going to undo that. And this time, I'll select just the circle and the square, and I'll hold down the Option on a Mac or Alt key on the PC, and then I'll click Unite. And now you can see how the shapes are still there. The circle's still there, and the rectangle is still there. So we can use these objects now to manipulate them even further. And so I'm going to double click that object, which goes into isolation mode. You can see that in the document window. And I'm going to select the circle, and I'm going to move it down and use my smart guides to help me align it with the edge of the rectangle so that it looks like a smooth curve seamlessly blending into the rectangle. And there's my smart guide showing me I'm aligned, and that looks pretty good. So that's just what we want. So I'll double click to exit isolation mode. And now, since I have the shape the way I want it, I can do away with the additional shapes and just turn it into one shape. That might make it easier later on to change various attributes of it. So I'll select the shape, and in my Properties panel, I'm going to click the Expand button, and that just turns it into one shape. Now I'll use the Properties panel to change the fill to that pink color. And I'll put no stroke on that. And I'll select all of those objects and group them. So now let's work on reshaping a path. And I want the artboard number 10 that we're going to turn into a flame. And you can see on the start, I've just got a straight path. It's all it is. So I'm going to select that path with the selection tool. And underneath the scale tool, I want to choose the Reshape tool. And I'm going to move the cursor over the path. And when I see the pointer change so that it has a plus sign near it, I'm going to click, hold, and drag. And that will kind of move the path a little bit. I want to move that out to the left. I'll go down towards the bottom and click, hold, and drag to the left so that I'm creating kind of a reverse S curve there. So that's got my basic shape. Now I want to use the width tool to adjust the width of this object. So I'll get that. And I'll position the pointer over about the middle of this stroke. And when I see a plus sign, I'm going to click and drag out. So click and hold, drag out. You can see it's widening the stroke just there at the middle. Most of it is, that's the widest point there. I can click, hold, and drag that anchor point up or down to adjust it wherever I want to. I can click, hold, and drag the outer anchor points out as far as I want to. That looks pretty good. So with the width tool, we can see that there's just a flat end to both the top and the bottom. We need to get it more of a corner anchor point, like we see in the final example. So what I'm going to do with my width tool is just double click that middle anchor point, and when the dialog box comes up, I just want to enter a total width of 0. And click OK. That didn't quite do what I wanted to do. I think I had maybe some other anchor points selected, so I'll undo that. Make sure I'm only selecting the top anchor point. So I'll double click that center anchor point and make the total width 0. And that's better. I must have had some other anchor points. I'll do the same to the bottom anchor point, double click it, and put in 0 in the total width field. So there, I've got the basic shape, and now I'll just use that to copy it and make some other similar shapes and transform them to look like the final example. Now this is just a stroke, and I'm going to go to Object and down to Path and outline the path, which will make it a little bit easier for me to manipulate the object. So I'll just go up to Object, down to Path, and over to Outline Path, and then I'll just make it a lot smaller. And I need to reflect it, so it's going the other direction, so I'll go to Object, Transform, and Reflect. And that did what I wanted it to do. It reflected it vertically. So I'll move that up there, and I need to make it even a little bit smaller. So now I'll copy the large shape again. And again, I'll go to Object, Path, Outline Path, make it much smaller, and move it into place. So that looks pretty close to what the final object is to be. So I'll select all of those objects and group them. So now let's finish up our illustration. We've got just about everything done. We need to assemble the parts in our trailer. So I'll zoom out and let's see, I'll zoom in a little bit. We've got to put all the various parts on our trailer. So I'll get the door first, I think. I'll select that, just click, hold, and drag over to the trailer. Maybe I'll zoom in a little bit so I can see what I'm doing better. So I'll get my selection tool. I'll drag the door over to the trailer. I'll get the window and move that over. I'll get the wheel and move that into place. I think I'll have to use my arrow key to get it just where I want to. So I'll use my left and up arrow keys to get that into place. I'll get the little propane gas tank and put that on the trailer. And that looks pretty good. So I'll select all of those objects and go to Object and group them. Also, I want to put that little flame that we did in the center of that kind of campfire thing. So I'll just select that and move it over there. And now I'll just assemble all these various parts into the little background that they belong in. So I'll kind of zoom out a little bit so I can see the various parts that I need. Okay. So now I will, let's see, which will I get first? Maybe I'll get the truck. I'll move that into the little background. I'll get the trailer and attach it behind the truck. I'll get the tent and move that into the background. And I'll get that little campfire object and move that in there. So we can see how easily we can combine various shapes. I don't think I grouped that yet, so I'll group that. What we did, we used a lot of various techniques to combine simple basic shapes into more complex shapes. And like I said before, this is sometimes a much easier way to create objects rather than trying to draw them from scratch, is by combining objects in various ways using the Pathfinder panel and other tools like the Shape Builder tool. So that looks pretty good. Happy camping!